Hi there. I'm a man. I don't always talk, I don't always listen, but I do make sure to take the time to sit and think to myself every now and then. When it comes to gender issues, I have opinions, but I know that my opinions are considered dangerous. So, the less I say, the safer I am. I don't agree with so-called conventional wisdom, or with what passes for feminist wisdom in this day and age. And if I speak my mind, I know that I'm making myself a target. I feel like I have nothing to gain and everything to lose by expressing myself. A male perspective on gender issues is almost never heard, and I'm part of the reason for that. I would really appreciate the opportunity to speak my mind, though, without being judged by women or feminist ideologues. Is there some place that I can go where my perspective is actually welcome?
Today, we are launching a campaign called HeForShe. I am reaching out to you because we need your help. We want to end gender inequality, and to do this, we need everyone involved.
On the one hand, gender equality sounds like a fair-minded and noble objective. But then why call it HeForShe? That just sounds like men helping women out. That sounds exactly like the traditional definition of masculinity. Men's traditional role as the provider and the protector. To provide for women and to protect women. How is that traditional thinking supposed to promote equality? I think that I can tell you what the biggest obstacle to gender equality is. And it has nothing to do with men not wanting to help women out. Do you want to hear it? Because here it is. Men do not want to help weak, dependent men. And women do not want to help strong, independent women.
This is the first campaign of its kind at the UN. We want to try and galvanize as many men and boys as possible to be advocates for change. And we don't just want to talk about it. We want to try and make sure that it's tangible.
Recruiting men to help women. Now that's a piece of cake. Recruiting men to help other men, though, that's going to be a challenge. If you had any trouble with recruiting men for the cause of helping women, then there must be some sort of incompetence, some sort of misunderstanding. You would have to be completely delusional if you can't recruit men to help women.
I was appointed as Goodwill Ambassador for UN Women 6 months ago. And the more I've spoken about feminism, the more I have realized that fighting for women's rights has too often become synonymous with man-hating. If there is one thing I know for certain, it is that this has to stop.
Feminism does have a big problem with man-hating. But are you saying that feminists should stop man-hating? Are you saying that feminism should stop focusing on misogyny entirely and fight against misandry as well? Because I didn't hear you say that. Do you actually want to radically reform feminism? Or do you just want to help feminism to patch up its PR problem? Because I can't tell. Do you realize that it's not just an image problem, it's more of a credibility problem? Maybe feminism would be more popular if feminists would stop trying to boss people around, demonizing men, building bogus victim narratives, spreading misinformation, relying on censorship and hyperbole, and just generally manipulating people.
For the record, feminism, by definition, is the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. It is the theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes.
That's only one of many attempts to define feminism. Here's a question for you, Emma. If the people think that the word feminism means one thing, and a dictionary says that it means something else, then who's right and who's wrong? The theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes is so wide open to interpretation that it's just a long way of saying nothing. A theory is an abstract, explanatory framework. If feminism is a theory, as you said, then it could be accurate or inaccurate, but regardless, it must be coherent and clear. The only way to know if your theory is correct is to try your best to prove it wrong, and then find out if it stands up to skepticism. It's even more important to specify what evidence would disprove your theory than to know what evidence would confirm it. Because confirmations are cheap and easy to find, if you're looking for confirmations.
I started questioning gender-based assumptions a long time ago. When I was 8, I was confused being called bossy because I wanted to direct the plays that we would put on for our parents. But the boys were not.
I have a theory for you, Emma. You're an Aries. Astrologers say that Aries is competitive, dominant, courageous, and stereotypically masculine.
When at 14, I started to be sexualized by certain elements of the media. When at 15, my girlfriends started dropping out of their beloved sports teams because they didn't want to appear muscly. When at 18, my male friends were unable to express their feelings. I decided that I was a feminist, and this seemed uncomplicated to me.
So you decided that you were a feminist. But you could have just as easily decided that you were an Aries. It's your personality that you're trying to describe and explain. At 14, you say that you were sexualized by the media. Do you want to know what really sexualizes people? It's not the media. It's puberty. But both men and women love to show off. They all want to be sexually attractive. Women advertise themselves sexually through their appearance, and men advertise themselves sexually through their achievements. Women say, "Hey guys, look at me." Men say, "Hey girls, look at what I can do." When you talk about women who love competitive sports and athletic achievement, who quit because they're afraid that it'll make them unattractive, that's really sad and ironic, isn't it? In my personal experience, I've always heard women attacking other women for being too muscular, but I've never heard that coming from men. Also, the fitness industry is just full of euphemisms and lies, just to attract women who are afraid of looking too muscular. You're not building muscle, you're toning your muscle. Your muscles aren't getting bigger, they're just getting longer and leaner. It's just a bunch of nonsense. Apparently, women just do not want to help strong, independent women. And men do not want to help weak, dependent men. When women are strong, they lose support from other women. And when men are weak, they lose support from other men. Men don't want to share their feelings, their fears, or their pain because they know that people don't care about men's pain or men's fears. And also because women are turned off by weak and whiny men. It's women who define what a real man is. The sexual marketplace is democratic, and women vote with their vagina.
But my recent research has shown me that feminism has become an unpopular word. Women are choosing not to identify as feminist.
Feminist is just a label. You know, I actually prefer third-wave feminism to second-wave feminism because it's watered down, even though it's incredibly shallow. The whole "I need feminism because" Tumblr campaign, that's your typical example of third-wave feminism. You can say anything about feminism that you want to say as long as you claim to be dependent on feminism. As long as you give credit and praise to feminism, it doesn't matter what your excuse is. It's all about identifying as a feminist. That's it. Identity and tribalism. It's just like that church that says, it doesn't matter what you believe, as long as you call yourself a Christian and praise Jesus. or the politician who will say anything that you want to hear as long as you vote for them. Now, why would a strong and independent Aries woman like Emma Watson need feminism? You don't need feminism. Feminism does not define you.
Apparently, I am among the ranks of women whose expressions are seen as too strong, too aggressive, isolating, and anti-men, unattractive even. Why has the word become such an uncomfortable one?
I don't know why other women think that you're too strong or too aggressive. Is it because you're a feminist, or is it because you're an Aries? But here's what I do know. I do know that you're an attractive woman. And I also know that if you want accurate feedback, you should pay attention to what men do, and not what women say. Women attack other women who stand out. Compared to how men treat each other, women really do act like jealous, catty conformists. I know it's politically incorrect to say that, but it's true.
I am from Britain, and I think it is right that I am paid the same as my male counterparts. I think it is right that I should be able to make decisions about my own body. I think it is right that women be involved on my behalf in the policies and the decisions that will affect my life. I think it is right that socially I am afforded the same respect as men.
I think it is wrong to spread misconceptions about the wage gap. I think it is wrong to portray reproductive rights as a gender issue. I think it is wrong to imply that politicians only care about the welfare of their own gender. I think it is wrong to forget that respect is something that has to be earned.
But sadly, I can say that there is no one country in the world where all women can expect to receive these rights. No country in the world can yet say that they have achieved gender equality.
No country will ever be able to say that, because you will always be able to find gender inequality if you search for it. The fact is, males and females are different, and the world is full of chaos and turbulence. Therefore, inequality will always be easy to find, and perfect equality will always be elusive.
These rights I consider to be human rights, but I am one of the lucky ones. My life is a sheer privilege because my parents didn't love me less because I was born a daughter. My school did not limit me because I was a girl. My mentors didn't assume that I would go less far because I might give birth to a child one day. These influences were the gender equality ambassadors that made me who I am today. They may not know it, but they are the inadvertent feminists who are changing the world today. We need more of those. And if you still hate the word, it is not the word that is important. It's the idea and the ambition behind it. Because not all women have received the same rights that I have. In fact, statistically, very few have been.
You are an extremely successful superstar, but most other women aren't. And how could it be any other way? For every person who has more attention and glory, another person has less. We can't all be mega superstars, because there are only so many fans to go around. You were right when you said that you were lucky, but you wouldn't be lucky if you didn't have some courage. Us men are very lucky as a gender, but we're also very unlucky as a gender. That's just because we take more risks. We don't play safe, and we don't accept mediocrity as success. Collectively, we literally make our own luck. For every successful man, there are many others who have died or failed miserably, trying to be successful. And it's only possible to distinguish between the two with the benefit of hindsight.
In 1997, Hillary Clinton made a famous speech in Beijing about women's rights. Sadly, many of the things that she wanted to change are still true today. But what stood out for me the most was that less than 30% of the audience were male.
Hillary Clinton will spin a female victim narrative out of any situation. She once said in a speech that women have always been the primary victims of war. And she supported her claim by saying that they lose their husbands, their sons, and their brothers in combat. Normally we consider the people who are actually attacked and killed to be the primary victims, but the woman always has to be the victim in a feminist narrative. So why would men want to attend a female pity party?
How can we affect change in the world when only half of it is invited or feel welcome to participate in the conversation? Men, I would like to take this opportunity to extend your formal invitation.
I appreciate the invitation, but before I show up, I have to ask, is this going to be another feminist pity party?
Gender equality is your issue too. Because to date, I've seen my father's role as a parent being valued less by society, despite my needing his presence as a child as much as my mother's. I've seen young men suffering from mental illness, unable to ask for help, for fear it would make them less of a man, or less of a man. In fact, in the UK, suicide is the biggest killer of men between 20 to 49, eclipsing road accidents, cancer, and coronary heart disease. I've seen men made fragile and insecure by a distorted sense of what constitutes male success. Men don't have the benefits of equality either.
Right on, sister. I'm clapping in my head. I wish I could say that myself, without being called a misogynist.
We don't often talk about men being imprisoned by gender stereotypes, but I can see that they are, and that when they are free, things will change for women as a natural consequence.
We also don't talk about how men are literally imprisoned, much more than females are, and how men are unfairly demonized and criminalized in society. Society is much more tolerant and accepting of women. It's men who are becoming outcasts. We don't talk about how men dominate the prison population, the homeless population, the most dangerous jobs, military casualties, the victims of murder, and just about every form of violence. You never hear about any of that because it doesn't fit neatly with the feminist victim narrative. Feminism portrays women as vulnerable, kind, and trustworthy, and in need of support, and men as dangerous, selfish, untrustworthy, and less deserving of support.
If men don't have to be aggressive in order to be accepted, women won't feel compelled to be submissive. If men don't have to control, women won't have to be controlled. Both men and women should feel free to be sensitive. Both men and women should feel free to be strong. It is time that we all perceive gender on a spectrum instead of two sets of opposing ideals. If we stop defining each other by what we are not and start defining ourselves by who we are, we can all be freer. And this is what HeForShe is about. It's about freedom. I want men to take up this mantle so that their daughters, sisters, and mothers can be free from prejudice, but also so that their sons have permission to be vulnerable and human too. Reclaim those parts of themselves they abandoned, and in doing so, be a more true and complete version of themselves.
If you truly want to abolish gender roles, then it's absolutely necessary to understand why they exist. If you get that wrong, then you won't be able to accomplish your objective. If you want people to be more free, then you need to understand why they conform. If you want people to be more honest, then you need to understand why they pretend. If you want people to be more similar, then you need to understand what makes them different. Wishing is not going to make it so. Understanding is the most important part.
The reality is that if we do nothing, it will take 75 years, or for me to be nearly 100, before women can expect to be paid the same as men for the same work.
I'm sorry, Emma, but that's just not true. There's no good reason to believe that, and there's no good reason to lie to people.
We are struggling for a uniting word, but the good news is that we have a uniting movement. It is called HeForShe. I am inviting you to step forward, to be seen, and to ask yourself, if not me, who? If not now, when? Thank you very, very much.
I can see that you want to recruit an army of 1 billion men with your HeForShe campaign. I can see that you claim to be about gender equality. I can see that you want donations, but your website doesn't get into anything specific about how you're going to fight against gender inequality. That's the most important part. It's not only the thought that counts. I don't know what your solution is because you won't say. I can say for sure, though, that helping women only is not the solution. Punishing men only is not the solution. Censorship and deception is not the solution. And promoting misandry is not the solution. Putting 1 billion men to work for you is sure to be good for you, but ultimately, it's the work that you do that matters, not who's doing it. And that is the glaringly obvious gap that your organization and your speech have failed to address. What are you planning to actually do? Are you going to do the standard feminist thing and tell people that they're bad and wrong and sign them up for re-education and brainwashing? Are you going to provide women-only resources? What's the plan?